Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting expert interview where I interview awesome guests in the real estate investing industry to inspire you and help you learn. Just a quick reminder of our upcoming REI Power Summit. It's going to be a very large online event. We have over 50 speakers lined up so far. 100% virtual. You don't need to travel. You don't need to dress up. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You can watch it from wherever you're at, anytime you want to, and you're going to have access to it for 12 months. So check out reipowersummit.com coming up here very quickly. For today's show, I'm joined by Pete Neubig. He's a real estate investor and property manager out of Houston. Pete is actually the president of the Houston chapter of the National Association of Residential Property Managers and the winner of a number of awards for his leadership roles. Pete has a ton of experience with rental properties, including, what not to do, buying a bunch of properties, based on numbers and assumptions that didn't pan out. And I think that probably what I just said resonated with a lot of people. Lots of rental property investors, especially newer ones, me included, started by making academic assumptions on vacancy rates and maintenance and a number of things like that, which ultimately are, quite frankly, never accurate, certainly with a single house or a small number of them. So there's a lot more to owning rental properties than just the numbers you estimate up front. And that is what Pete is going to share with you today. To be successful in the rental business, you need the understanding that property management is a people business. From your tenants to the people that you partner with, it will make or break your business absolutely, no matter how accurate you think your assumptions are up front. Before we get started with Pete, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days with rates starting as low as 9%. For more information, call 888-296-1697. B2R Finance makes loans tailored specifically for rental investors. They can help you unlock equity from existing properties so you can get cash out to grow your rental portfolio. That's huge and opens up lots of opportunities previously not available to rental investors. Need a loan? Call 855-819-4412 or visit b2rfinance.com today. AceBusinessFunding.com can help you get up to $150,000 in revolving credit lines to fund your business with rates as low as 0% for the first 12 to 18 months. Use the funds for startup costs, marketing, inventory, or almost anything your business needs. If you can't get funding, you don't pay a dime. Get funds for your business today at acebusinessfunding.com. We'd also like to thank Specialized IRA Services, National Real Estate Insurance Group, and VirtualStaffNow.com. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Pete, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's such a great topic because, rental properties, obviously, this, they're hot right now. It's literally, as you know, being referred to as an asset class now. So it's bringing in, traditional investors that don't invest in real estate. They're moving money out of the market into rental properties. And all those folks, I did it when I was new, and I still have to do it on some level. You have to make assumptions on, vacancy and maintenance and repair costs and a lot of things, right, that can very easily not pan out because it comes down to who you're working with and, of course, the tenant, right? The tenant can just take you to the cleaners if they want to, and they do once in a while. So it's going to be a great show. So sorry, I'm doing all the talking now. I want to learn. Tell us about you. Let's learn a little bit about how you got started, because I know that you haven't been doing this your whole life. And tell us some more about some of the things you have going on today.
Sure. Well, I got started back in 2001. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I never really knew how to go about it. My family is, I have some uncles, grandfather, they were all entrepreneurs, but I went the traditional route, which was get good grades in school, go to college, get a job. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
And I think most of our listeners, most of your listeners, most of your listeners.
Hey, my friends are your friends, Pete.
I like it. Give me that database then. So most of your listeners probably went that traditional route. I was an IT guy for 20 years. I started buying real estate when I was an IT guy. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I sought out real estate and got educated, found a local real estate group, bought some books. I actually had the No Money Down with Carlton Sheets on the cassette tapes.
There you go.
So I was all in back in 2000, 2001. 2001, I bought my first property. I actually bought two properties on the same day. One was a duplex and one was a 100-unit apartment complex. So I'll talk about trial by fire.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was my way out. I thought eventually I was going to own 50 or 100 properties. I was going to make enough money from those properties, and I was going to be quote unquote retired, living the American dream.
Yeah.
And and
you also probably made some assumption that they were passive, right?
Yeah, that's what they teach you in real estate school, and that's
it's
what rich
passive. Whenever I use that word passive about our rentals, I get a sharp elbow from my wife because they're not passive, and we don't even manage them ourselves, and it's still not passive.
Anything but passive.
Yeah,
especially if you don't have a really good team around you. It can be passive.
Yeah,
if you have a good team. Unfortunately, I made all the mistakes that a new investor would make. Unfortunately, I made them for like 3 years straight. So some people just, don't learn as quickly as others. Like most of your, I would think like most of your listeners, they're very well educated. They probably a white collar job for the most part. They're probably an employee based, and they're probably what I found is that most investors are high C's. They're very analytical. So what looks good on paper, then they say, great, I'm going to buy it. And it's kind of what you talked about in your intro. I'm that guy. I'm a very analytical guy, being an IT guy, you can imagine. And so I would look at these properties in basically low income section of town, and I'm like, holy cow, $40,000. I only got to have 20% down, $5,000. They rent for $800 a month. Okay, 10% vacancy, 10% maintenance. I'm still making 35% cash on cash return. If I buy 20 of these things, I'm going to make a ton of money.
Right.
And I think a lot of people get excited about the numbers, and rightfully so. But that's what they're taught. Like when I was with the real estate group, when I was reading the books, back then we didn't have the blogs and a lot of the sites like Flipner to get educated. So you're basically just taking what you can read and from other people, and a lot of that stuff is all about the numbers. Yeah. And it's right. They talk about appreciation. They talk about the tax deduction. They talk about the cash flow. They talk about cash on cash return. They talk about the rate of return instead of the of putting money in the market. And a lot of that stuff is true if you buy right, and then when you buy it, if you manage the asset correctly.
Yeah.
And managing the asset's simple. It's managing the people inside the asset that becomes challenging at times. And so, especially on the lower spectrum, your profit margins are higher, right, in your Class D properties. And the reason why the profit margins are higher is because the management of it is much more difficult.
Right.
So when my business partner, Steve, and I, we ended up buying, it was like 25 homes in like an 18-month period. So it was quite a lot for two guys that were working full time and, just trying to make it, right? Just trying to do the right thing. And we loved buying the property. It's kind of like you're courting your girlfriend. You're courting a girl to go on a date with you, and you just the art of the deal, right? And then you love the deal. And then what happens is you have this house, and now you're married to it for however long you're going to keep this thing. And we're buy and hold, guys. So you're talking 20, 30 years potentially.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's the mundane little things that you need to do day in and day out that most people don't like, that most investors don't like to do. Because we like to, look at the numbers, buy the deal, and let's go to the next one.
Let's go to the next deal. Yeah.
And let's go to the next deal. So some of the challenges that we had was we were going to the next deal, and we did not have a good policy and procedures in place. And I know everybody, people out there may think, well, why do I need policy and procedures? I'm only going to buy 1, 3, 5, 7 doors. And the fact of the matter is you need to have policy and procedures in place to make sure that you don't make the mistakes that can be made.
Right.
A quick example would be making sure that an application or an applicant is fit for your home. Whether you're low income or high income, you should still have qualifications. just having a heartbeat, like getting a mortgage back in the early 2000s, is really not a good qualification. And Steve and I did not have that. I mean, if you had cash, we took you. We would run your credit. You know, if it was bad, but you didn't have a felony, we would take you. So our qualifications were a little too low.
Right.
And so, you know, one of the things as an investor, when they buy a property, the government sees you as a business. You know, the state sees you as a business. The tenants think you're this big businessman.
Right.
So you have a business. So you need to treat it like a business. And we tell all of our clients now, you know, that by having a property management company, the property management company has those policies and those procedures, and they really take care of the inbound stuff, like the applicant. So we had a big challenge. We had I think it was like a 30% eviction rate. And then, of course, we had to learn about the eviction process real quick when that was going on. So it's just, you know, it's things like policy and procedure on how you're going to handle applicants, on how you're going to handle maintenance requests, on how you're going to handle, you know, lease violations, that a lot of people don't want to be, a lot of investors don't really want to be bothered with. They just want to buy the deal. They want to have mailbox money, and they want to move on to the next deal.
Right.
And so when Steve and I were it was during Hurricane Ike down here, and we're in Houston, Texas. So it was down here. We had a Hurricane Ike come through, blew a bunch of roofs off. It was pretty devastating down here. And I remember he and I driving all of our properties. I'm like, you know, what are we going to do, man? We got to get out of this, you know. And it was really a low time for us as investors. We were losing money. Our properties really weren't being managed correctly. Our fault. So we went to go look for a management company. And we found out we thought we can build just as good a mousetrap or a better mousetrap. And that's when we started putting policy procedures together. And that's when we actually created Empire Property Management to manage our own properties. We never anticipated that we would be where we are today, which is we manage close to 500 units. I have a staff of about 16, 18 people, and I actually have a real estate company on that to help our investors find deals as well.
That's great.
So
that's great.
It's been a long, sometimes torturous road, but it's really been fantastic, and we're having a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe you could share some stories on, or a story on. You know, I think one of the challenges is that by nature, you said a lot of real estate investors, people you find tend to be very analytical. Another word for that, and I fit in that boat, and my wife does. So I don't say this word to offend anybody. Another word for analytical is cheap, right? Sometimes, especially real estate investors. I've bought so many houses, and I've been in the, you know, I've been classically trained to buy them deep, that it's hard for me to pay full price for anything anymore, even outside of real estate. It's tough. You try to, I'm like a value player, you know. Everything I want to get is a value. So where you run into trouble sometimes is by thinking, I can just do that myself. Because I think what happens to some people, I've fallen into this boat, I think a lot of people have, is that one of the things that you weren't analytical enough on is your opportunity cost of what else you could be doing, right? I mean, whether it's finding the next deal or spending more time with your family or enjoying life or whatever. So I think a lot of people, especially early on, just assume I'll just manage them myself, you know. I've got a maintenance guy, he can deal with stuff, but you know, stuff happens, right? Stuff happens in the middle of the night, your maintenance man can't be found, you know, all those things. And I think real estate investors that are kind of hearing this or joining us today need to be true to themselves and say, yes, I have to pay for property management, but and first off, I'm not. If you want to go build, I think the key, what you're going to talk about here today too, is kind of systems and putting processes in place. And so if you have the time and you want to do all that, you think you'd be better than somebody else, then you know, do it. But I think if you just assume that you can just kind of wing it and figure it out, it'll end up costing you a lot more than the property management in the first place.
Absolutely. What we tell people is, as an investor, a lot of investors they've found somebody helped them find a deal, whether it's a licensed real estate agent or a wholesaling company, but they use a professional to find the deal. They use a professional to do their taxes. Not many investors that I know, once they buy that first house, they hand their taxes off. They don't go to H&R Block anymore. They hand it off to a professional.
Right.
They have a real estate lawyer that they work with, a professional. Then they get this asset that's $200,000, $300,000, and then all of a sudden they think that they can manage it themselves without hiring a professional.
Right.
And I think a lot of people think it's real easy, and I guess it can be at times. However, as soon as something goes wrong, you can find yourself in a court of law and not knowing what's going on. So, for example, we have a certified property manager on staff. I am, residential property manager and an RMP designation from NARPM. We're all licensed agents. So we have a lot of knowledge, and we've been doing this for over collectively like 40, 50 years. My property manager has over 25 years experience. But what happens is, if you don't know the fair housing laws, you can get yourself in trouble. The Fair Housing now has an app that you can put on your phone. And as soon as somebody feels that they're being, there's a violation, they could just put in put that, go right to their app and put a violation against you. If you don't know that your local codes, like Texas, we have Texas Property Code here, which you're in Dallas, so you have the Texas Property Code. I'm sure people in other states have city and state codes that they have to abide by. So the renters have certain rights, and the applicants have certain rights. And if you don't know those rights, you can really find yourself all of a sudden, for a cup of coffee a day it takes to get a property management company, it was well worth it, because we look at ourselves as an insurance company. Yeah. Our insurance is that we keep you out of the court system. Yeah. That's mainly what we do by doing everything on your behalf the right way.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to, back to that kind of comment on opportunity cost. I'll just kind of say I've unfortunately been sued a few times. It's very frivolous. My attorney always says they're never going to win this. There's no chance they're going to win this. But I will tell you, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to spend 12 to 18 months, have to spend a bunch of money with an attorney, have some sleepless nights thinking about stuff. Yep. Just things like that. Even if you're not in the wrongdoing, which we pride ourselves on doing everything right, or you're never harming anybody. So it's painful personally when that stuff happens, because you're like, I'm a good person. I didn't do what they said, or. But even, let me give you another example. We had a rental property one time. This is a little bit of a lower end property that we typically don't have, but it's just one that we bought because, it was just like you said, we needed to catch one, and we caught one. And it's an old house. It's in an old part of town. Most of the houses on the street, I wouldn't live like this, but don't have air conditioning, right? Crazy. We're in Texas, right? Yeah. But ours did. It just had window units. It didn't have window units. It had a central. We put a central system in. Well, the woman started filing, complaints with the city that she was living in substandard conditions. And what it turns out is, so get this, she was leaving the back door open so that her dogs on the enclosed patio could breathe the fresh air, which was just this big sucking sound of like all of the cold air is going right out that back door. And that was that was literally the entire problem, but it didn't mean that we didn't have to deal with the city on a bunch of issues. Yeah. I kept sending my HVAC guys down there to fix stuff. I ended up having to go down there myself. You spend all this time on it, and it's just, we live in a society where everybody is a victim, and even if you're in the right, it doesn't mean that it's not going to eat up a bunch of your time.
Yeah, she was probably trying to get you to pay for her electric bill too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Because we are in a litigious society, that as soon as you buy that house, most investors, like I know I was still working full time. I mean, I had a family, and I wasn't wealthy. I just figured out how to buy a house, or 10 or 15 of them. But many renters believe that you're this multimillionaire or this gazillionaire, that so they have no problem. Once you buy that first house, you have a target on your back.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, but it is the case. Yeah. And a lot of times, Mike, you think you're doing the right thing. You try to do the right thing, but it actually is not the right thing. Just because you think it's right, but law is not written that way.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, some applicant comes in, they give you some kind of sob story, and you veer away from your policy, and you take her. Well, you didn't take somebody else. And they catch wind that this person got in your house. Well, guess what? You just got a fair housing claim against you, and you're going to lose that fair housing claim because of X. And one of the things that we try that we do as a property management company, any property management company, is we have systems in place and policies, and that happens. Whatever we do, it happens every time. So when we do have to go to court, if we do, we can say, look, this is how we handle it every time.
Right.
And right there, that typically lets you win the case in that point. But a lot of investors that, especially like when I was doing it, I didn't know about fair housing. I didn't know about Texas property code. I didn't know that I only had 3 days to solve an AC problem or a plumbing issue. I thought if I just sent somebody out there, even if it wasn't solved, it was the right thing to do. And we're the clock is ticking. We get it, but I didn't know that after 3 days they could actually get you in small claims court.
Mm.
So there's a lot of things that you just know, like, hey, this is the right thing to do, but it can cost you.
Yeah.
And then you hit on it too. Is you talked a lot about it. Once you're have these issues, it's stress. How much is that stress worth?
Right.
It costs a lot of money to be stressful.
Yeah.
So,
can you share? I want to actually hopefully talk about. We said you kind of teed this up as talking about how this is a people business, and you need to really consider things that can go wrong and will go wrong with tenants. But it's also the same with other kind of partners you might work with, from contractors and things like that. So I want to kind of talk to you about that a little bit. But just kind of stay on the tenant stuff for another few minutes. Maybe you could share some things that how you kind of manage expectations with people that might be different than what you did early on, like some of the lessons that you learned of how to kind of deal with people, because a lot of it comes down to their expectations, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a few things, and I would recommend any real estate investor, whether they use a management company or not, can put some of these in place. So hopefully you get something out of it. First thing is, I talk about the application a lot because it all starts there. It all starts with the person that you put in place, and that's where you have the time to position that person. So always have your qualifications in writing that they can actually have access to it, whether it's a website that you have or when they have to fill out an application itself. Ours are online. They fill out an application online, but before they do that, they scroll down. They see all of our qualifications. They see all of our charges. So you want to position them in that case.
Okay.
All right. So we always use the same policy and process. Everything is done online. We don't meet we don't even meet the applicants, but we run their credit background, their criminal background. We look at previous rental history. We look at previous employment. We'll get a photo of their pet to make sure that the little Mimi is not a Doberman, but it's actually a Shih Tzu. So we have like a 21-point selection criteria that we look at. So that's the first thing. So I would highly recommend creating qualifications and do not deviate from those qualifications. If somebody does not qualify because you don't take felons, then you don't take felons. And you may say, I don't take felons that are less than 20 years, but you want to stick by that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing is you want to make sure that you have a lease that is, that is promulgated by your state legislator. A lot of people write their own leases, and I guess that's okay. I've never written up my own lease. I use the one that's written up by the Texas Association of Realtors because it's written by lawyers and it's in favor of the owner, and so we make sure that we stand by the lease. Now, we do not go over the lease with the resident. Everybody's like, really? I'm not a lawyer. I can't go over the lease legally. It's not to my benefit. We do have a lease video that was put out by Houston Association of Realtors, and we make them watch that.
Yeah.
It's so boring, but I make them watch it. And they sign off something. So the other thing we do is
it eliminates somebody coming back saying, well, they told me something different than what was in there, yeah.
Exactly. And then we actually have them sign off on certain things, like that you did watch the video, that, you are acceptance of the charges that we're going to charge you, that your acceptance of this pet fee that we're going to charge or whatever it is. Make sure your charges are always charged across the board to everybody. don't charge one person a pet fee and the other person you don't charge a pet fee.
Right.
We charge a pet deposit and a pet fee for you investors. I highly recommend it. The pet deposit is a deposit. It could go back to the owner. The tenant. The pet fee goes to HIP National. So hopefully I just put a little bit of money in.
HIP National. It took me a second.
That's HIP National. It goes right
well,
to
it's
HIP.
going to probably end up costing you anyway when they leave.
Yeah.
So
Most likely.
yeah.
And so when a tenant calls about a maintenance issue, okay, what we do to protect our owners, if that maintenance issue, if it's after 30 days, okay, we charge a maintenance deductible. It's written in the lease. It's written in our tenant acknowledgments. We have basically a 5-page tenant acknowledgments acknowledging that they're going to, that they're going to keep the yard and they're going to do this. And a lot of stuff's in the lease, but we also make it a tenant acknowledgement as well. That if they lock themselves out, there's a charge. That they're going to make the property, they're going to keep the property, they're going to give us property in the condition that it was given to them, and things like that. And so we make them sign that tenant acknowledgement. We make them sign a inventory condition form, which is very important. So this way you have an idea of what the house, what they think the house looks like. We also do a move-in inspection. I highly recommend this. If you're an investor, we take between 150 and 200 photos. We take a video, and we actually have an inventory. We actually have an application that does an inspection. We call it an assessment, but we actually have 150 to 200 photos, video, and the inspection report that we upload, and we actually let the residents see that. This way, when they move out, we send them back that report again, saying, "Hey, this is how we gave it to you. This is how we want it back."
Yeah.
We also give them a list of all the charges that they're going to have to pay if the oven's not clean, the fridge isn't clean, the house isn't clean, the stuff is not shampooed. So we make sure that everything is shampooed, the paint is good, the carpet is shampooed, the house is clean, and we want it back that way. Yeah. And if they don't bring it back that way, it comes off the security deposit.
And they know what those charges are up front, yeah.
And they know what the charges are up front.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
So if they do call something after 30 days and it's cosmetic, we tell them we're not, the owner doesn't approve that. We don't even tell the owner. We just tell them the owner doesn't approve that because it's cosmetic.
Right.
For example, they take the house, as is. They look at it. They sign off on it. And then they say, "Oh, I want this wall painted because there's some scuff marks on there." No, we're not going to go ahead and paint that wall for you. Now, if the owner says, "Hey, I really like these people. I want to paint the wall," obviously we'll do that. But name an investor that that's just going to paint the wall for the hell of it.
Right. Yeah. Well, Pete, we have a few minutes left here. Maybe you could talk about the kind of apply the fact that this is a people business to the side of the contractors you work with, kind of the partners that you work with from an investor perspective.
Sure.
Maybe you can apply it to some of the kind of key partners that are typical.
Yeah, especially if you're investing in a city that you don't live in, you definitely need to have partners.
Yeah.
But even if you're an investor that say I have about 60% of my investors are in Houston, so we have about 40% that live outside of Houston. And I think the main thing is, you hit on it earlier, the people that hire property management companies, they value their time, because that time can be better spent with their families or investing in other ventures, whether it's a business or some more property. It's important to have somebody that you trust. So as a property management company, that's the one thing that that will keep you out of legal problems. Yep. And as a property management company, we as an extension of having us in your Rolodex or on your team, we have team members that do all sorts of stuff, from insurance to carpet cleaning to to AC and plumbing work.
Yep.
Now, if you don't want a property management company, that's fine. And I would highly recommend that you actually have a good realtor that you can work with that can lease the properties for you. This way you don't have to go show the house, all the time, or because you can't show the house, you lose that client.
Right,
You don't want to have to run that application because, you're not really sure what you're looking at, whereas an agent would. And then obviously you need to have all the trades that go in for that property. And so you want to make sure that you have great connections, that this way they will take care of you. Now, what happens is, on the trades, like let's say you have a roof problem. Well, if you only have one or two houses, that roofer, he's going to answer my calls first.
Right.
Because I have 500 doors, and I give him business all year long. So he may or may not get to you. And so another, and then of course you don't have to make the call when you're dealing with a property management company. All that time that you're spending making calls or meeting people at the house or going to Home Depot, meeting a contractor at Home Depot, or you have to cut him a check because he won't do the job and then he doesn't finish the job, and then you can't find him. All that stuff goes away with the property management company.
Sure,
because of all the relationships that we have, and because we get volume-based discounts as well from all of our vendors.
Yep. Even stuff like we talk about contractors, but even lenders, agents you might work with to help you find deals, or I know some people actually use agents to help lease properties sometimes. There's a number of different kind of partners that you need to have, and I think my take is it doesn't need to be as exhaustive as the list that you have that somebody's signing off on all the things that they'll do. But I think as an investor, it's important that you find those people. And back to the expectation setting part is to kind of set, the biggest problem that people have with really everybody, but certainly contractors and business relationships, is that they have some expectation. Often it's just in their mind. And then when that level of expectation is not met, they're disappointed. So I think it's important to have those conversations with the people you might work with, right? To say, well, you either tell them what you want or ask them what they'll give. Just like, how will you handle this? What will you do for me? How will we work together on this? How often will we communicate? Whatever those things might be, I think it's important to kind of get that stuff clarified up front, because like you said, it's not quite like getting married, but you don't want to wait until after you're married to find out some things that you didn't know.
Absolutely. I think you said it perfect. It's really setting expectations, and sometimes people are a little scared to have those conversations because for whatever reason, they feel there's a fear there that they think that if I set the expectation, this roofer may not do the job for me or may not. We have learned that, and we set expectations with our owners, our residents, and our vendors when we onboard them, and we have rules on what we expect, and then this is what we say here. This is what's in return. So as any investor, I think one, it should set the expectations, and two, I think that it's not bad to make a call every once in a while to that roofer when you don't need anything, just to say what's up. Yeah. Relationships is kind of a dying art in people with all the distractions we have with Facebook and texting and so forth. That a phone call every once in a while just to say what's going on, it goes a long way. I'll give you a great example. At Empire, we just had a vendor appreciation. So we had about 40 vendors come in. We bought them lunch, and we had beer, wine, soda. And how important do you think that is? Next time I really have a problem, right, AC guy will go a little bit above and beyond because he knows that he's appreciated. And so to you investors out there, I'm not saying buy everybody a ham for Christmas, or anything like that, but it's you really want to work on those relationships, whether it's your property manager, your realtor, or just tradesman, your insurance person, because once they have that relationship with you, people will go above and beyond for you. They won't just say, well, what's in the agreement. They will actually do a little bit more because they just like you.
Yeah, it's important to stand out. One of the things that I've always been an advocate of course, if you deal with a property manager like you guys, you handle a lot of this. But if you're even if you have a property manager in other areas, I think there's a balance here that it won't come back to bite you somehow. But anytime I find a contractor that I work, I kind of go out of my way to help them get more business. Like, hey, I know somebody asked me, hey, do you know a good electrician? I know a great guy. I can't keep him busy full time. And I think, what tends to happen, this has happened over and over again, is I have a contractor, especially specialists that we don't use, like a glass guy that replaces glass in windows. I mean, I can't keep him busy even 5% of the time. But I've sent him so much business that when I call him, he'll say things like, hey, I'm actually backed up for like 2 weeks, but I really appreciate you, and I'm going to find a way to get this done tomorrow or the next day. That stuff is invaluable, right?
Absolutely. If you can get your stuff done, especially, roofers are a great example. How many times are those guys backed up?
Right.
Because especially when a storm comes through. Right. I mean, we had it where I think our roofers were backed up like 2 to 3 weeks, but they would make time to fit our people in.
Right.
And it's because of those relationships that we have with them.
Yeah. Well, Pete, any kind of final words on the importance of relationships and setting expectations and all the stuff we talked about today?
I think the main thing is don't let the number be your guide, but don't let it be the end all be all. Um, Create some policy and some procedures to get the right person. The golden rule is if you get the right tenant and you set those expectations up, your property will become very, very profitable.
Yeah.
If you get the wrong tenant, it becomes a loss, really.
Yeah. Yeah, especially for people early on, if your first property, the first you intend to buy 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and that first one is a nightmare, then you just stop and you don't move forward. And of course, there is some truth into having a portfolio that, bad things happen sometimes, but there's enough good stuff to offset it. So it's such a shame when people get started in real estate investing and they have such a bad experience on the first time, whether it's a rehab they're going to fix up and flip and they lose money on it because they did it, the wrong way. Or it's a rental property that, they made some bad decisions up front and it came back to bite them and they just stop and, move on to something else. So hate to see that.
If you have any of y'all that actually lose money on a deal, just think of it like, education. It's just the cost of education. We all, any of us who went to a 4-year institute knows the cost of education, and there's no guarantee. Maybe another time I'll tell the story, but I actually lost a 100-unit apartment complex. We lost it. Bank took it back. Wow. And I lost my life savings when I was 31 years old. And but I just, mentally I was, this is the cost. It was a high cost of education, but it was the cost of education.
Yeah.
And but if I would have thought that I just lost my life savings, I may have not have gotten into real estate ever again. And that was one of my first deals.
Wow.
And so just keep, if you're an investor out there and you have lost money or you're having a tough time, one is cut the cord, sell the property if it's not making any money, and two is don't think it's the end all be all. It's not all like that. It's just the cost of doing business or cost of education, and move forward. Don't let that get you down, because there is money to be made in real estate.
Absolutely. Well, Pete, if folks want to learn more about you, we didn't really talk much about your company, Empire Industries, down in Houston. But if they want to learn more about you or some of the great stuff that you're doing, where do they go?
Yeah, they can call us at 888-866-6727, or they can go to our website. It's EmpireIndustriesLLC.com. We have a lot of great information on our site, and it's free. So I think you can go on our site, and you'll get a lot of positive information.
Awesome. Pete, thanks so much for joining us today, and for everybody out there listening, thanks for joining us again. We've got, as you know, we're pushing, getting close up to over 250 episodes now, and we're going to keep them going. So if you haven't subscribed to us in iTunes, go ahead and do that, or check us out on FlipNerd.com. But Pete, thanks again for being with us today, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Really
have a good day. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.